Okay, the first thing you need to do is prepare your screen. So you have your stencil and you're going to be putting it on the flat side of the screen, and it needs to be mirror image so that when you turn it over, you're printing it the way you want it to be on your t-shirt. So the first thing we do is mask areas of the screen that could be exposed. Make sure when you're putting this tape on that you just lay it on flat and gently, because you don't want to distort the stencil. If you distort it, it can lift like this and you'll get areas of ink that creep under and create bleed. Okay, now your screen's ready to go. We're going to put it around the other way. So this is the way you're going to be holding it when you print it. And what we need to do now is actually apply the ink. I'm using a super cover, which is specially designed to go on dark colours because it's much more opaque than a normal printing ink. Now, if you consider the width of the design, that's as far as you need to go with your ink. And where we're going to place it is somewhere between the top of the image and the edge of the screen. And you can see I'm not putting too much on. It's enough for a pass through. And that's ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is prepare my t-shirt. Now if you're working with someone else, you can have them ready to go and preparing that for you. But as I'm working by myself, I'm going to do the two separately and keep them in two separate spaces. When you get your t-shirt, make sure that it's the right way around. So you've got the collar lower at the front, and we're going to put it on the board. This backing board is going to provide a slightly padded surface for the screen to operate on. Grab a piece of newsprint and place it between the padded board and your t-shirt. That's the space where the image is going to go. That's going to protect the backing board from any ink that goes through your garment when you're printing. Now what we need to do is prepare this surface by making the t-shirt as flat as we can. Make sure that the edges, the seams of the t-shirt are lined up so that they're equal, and then that way you'll be able to work right in the centre. Tuck the sleeves in at the back and tuck it in underneath at the bottom as well, and that's ready to go. Just check that you've got a nice flat surface, and then you can bring your screen from the wet area over to the printing area. Now, what you need to use as a rule of thumb is that the centre line for your design is where the seam of the armpit goes. So that's roughly there. You don't want it too high and you don't want it too low. So if you use that as a centre line, you tend to get it in the right spot. Hover over it, don't place it down yet. Hover over, line it up so that it's centred, and then drop it gently down. Now we're going to get our squeegee. Check that the edges are nice and clean and that you've got a nice flat edge there. If you've got a nick on one side, flip it over and use the other side, because we're going to be working at a 45-degree angle. Now this is where a second person comes in handy. You can get them to hold the screen. Okay, so once you've got someone holding the screen in place, what you're going to do is pick up the squeegee. And we're going to do what we call a pass through, or we're going to load up the screen. And that's where you just run the ink without pressure over the image. And you need to make sure that every part of your image is actually covered with the ink. Now we can start to apply pressure. So running at the same angle, 45-degree angle, we're going to apply a lot more pressure. And it's up to you. You can do 2 or 3 pass-throughs depending on how confident you are. Okay, remember, everything goes into that wet area, the ink area. You don't want anything to do with your t-shirt being in an area where it could potentially get ink on it. So now that we've done that, what we can do is actually do a quick little check. And the first thing we're going to do is just holding one edge of the screen, I'm going to get my partner in crime to check underneath while I gently lift it and see if everything went well. So we're happy with that one. Yes. So now we can gently lift it and there's our design. Beautiful. Take the screen and put it away from the t-shirt. Once again, back into that wet ink zone. Now we're going to separate it. This is where you really need your partner again. So one person grabs the corner of the t-shirt, the other person grabs the board, and we separate them that way. And there we have it. Gently place that somewhere to be dried, and you've got your t-shirt. Beautiful. Now we're up to the cleaning part. This is really important because looking after your screen is vital in this process. So the first thing you need to do is scrape the excess ink off the squeegee and the screen. And just, you can put that straight back into the pot. And now you can remove the stencil. Now we can actually save this stencil and save it for another time. So if you're doing something like a set of team t-shirts and next year you've got some extra players come on board, you've actually got your stencil to use. So gently with the stencil, you can just actually hang that up to dry nice and flat. Now what you need to do before it gets too dry is run the screen under clear water. Just rinse it off. Don't forget to do both sides because there will be ink on both sides. Using a sponge is really helpful. You can see it's also important to get into those corners right along the edge. You don't want any ink left there. When you think you're done, just hold it up to the light and have a look through your screen. If you can actually still see some ink, you need to go back and wash it out. You're happy it's really clean. Sit it somewhere safe to dry out. And you're done.